Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Priest charged with sexual offenses against 12-year-old girl. JFJ continues to raise concerns about misuse of power under SOEs. And later in sports, Caster Semenya wins appeal at EU High Court. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. The police have charged a Roman Catholic priest for alleged sexual offenses against a 12-year-old girl in Portmore, St. Catherine. He was pointed out in an identification parade on Monday. It's alleged that the child was forced to perform sex acts with the priest. The incidents reportedly happened between March and April this year. In a statement on Monday, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Kingston said the priest has been removed from all active pastoral ministry and it will continue to cooperate fully with the relevant authorities on the matter. Jamaicans for Justice continues to raise concerns about the misuse of power under the states of emergency. Policy advocacy specialist Jade Williams was speaking today on Smile Jamaica. The details in this report.
Jamaicans for Justice says it received over 100 complaints about persons being allegedly abused under the states of emergency by law enforcers. Policy advocacy specialist at JFJ, Jade Williams, says nothing much has changed in terms of the regulations under the SOEs.
Our fulsome position at JFJ has always been that the use of SOE as a routine crime-fighting measure is a catalyst within itself for these human rights violations. And so we need to start looking at what else we can do to address what we acknowledge is a serious issue, is one of our biggest issues in Jamaica. But we have to find a way to balance our response with human rights. And I don't think we have done that yet.
But Ms. Williams says it's a challenging situation to deal with, especially with the lawmen who are operating under the SOEs.
I think it is a double challenge because in some of the instances where we would have seen the arbitrary detention, the officers would have been working with instructions that they received that this was sufficient. So I think part of it goes to their understanding of the powers that they have under the regulations and whether or not enough is being done to ensure that they understand the limitations of those powers.
While some persons are of the view that the SOEs work, the JFJ disagrees.
The most recent SOE implemented in June, the rationale for it was an increasing in crime rate after the previous SOE that was implemented in December. So it's clear that you implement the SOE and for the period that there's an SOE, there might be a drop in the crime rate, which immediately goes back up once the SOE is over. So what I'm saying is that the SOE being used as a routine crime-fighting measure is not effective.
The JFJ continues to reiterate the need for another approach by the government to address the crime problem.
What we've always said is that the SOE is a response to the crime rate, right? But it does very little to prevent crime. And so what it is that is necessary is for us to be looking more at our preventative measures. So our social systems, our education system, how is it that we're able to provide the kind of social support that the gangs who are driving the crime are providing so that we can bring our citizens on the side of the law rather than on the side of those who are terrorizing their neighborhoods.
Hal Shane Burke, TVJ News.
There's a call for the Ministry of Health to break its silence on the COVID situation in the country. This amid concerns that cases are once again climbing. Member of Parliament for East Kingston and Port Royal, Philip Paulwell, says the ministry has questions to answer.
Is the country seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases? The question on the minds of many in the last few weeks. Speaking at a party meeting recently, Member of Parliament for East Kingston and Port Royal Philip Paulwell says the figures could be much higher based on the reports he's been getting.
We are getting reports across Jamaica that our hospitals again are in a state of crisis. We have gotten reports from out of this constituency that many of our people are contracting COVID.
Just last week, Regional Director for the Southeast Regional Health Authority, Errol Green, reported that hospitals in the region like the Princess Margaret Hospital in St. Thomas were seeing a rise in cases of COVID. It is why MP for East Kingston and Port Royal Philip Paulwell wants the Ministry of Health to provide the public with an update.
It is important because people are becoming sick and it is not being told to the Jamaican people. And we have a responsibility to tell our people that COVID has not died. It is still around and we need to be careful. We need to start to wear a mask, especially at public events.
Mr. Paulwell is also taking issue with the updates online.
I think the attitude by the government and indeed the entire country is that COVID has gone. COVID is behind us. And so there is not much information coming out about the high incidence of sickness arising from COVID. I believe that we have to be a lot more responsible.
In the meantime, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton is scheduled to make a statement in the lower house this afternoon. It's left to be seen whether he will address the issue. As of July 10, the country recorded 79 cases, bringing it to 155,455, the total number of confirmed cases in the country. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
Meanwhile, hospitals like Mandeville Regional, Maypen and Black River are now seeing a reduction in respiratory cases.
My current understanding is that while we still have, it's still tight, the issue is easing a bit and it's not as dire as it was a month ago. So we are cautiously optimistic that as the weather gets warmer and the summer comes on, that the seasonal reduction in respiratory cases will ease and we can return to some normalcy.
Chairman of the Southern Regional Health Authority, Wayne Chen, reported earlier this year an increase in admissions, which led to overcrowding.
Typically, you'll get a lot of cases in the early part of the year, especially in Manchester. And we're talking about the upper respiratory tract infections and so on. But there has been some flu-like symptoms that have really been stubborn this year. And the numbers didn't decrease as we would see year to year. But finally, I think in the last couple of weeks, I'm told that the numbers now seem to be easing.
President General of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, Kevin Gale, is disputing claims by business leaders that the country is experiencing a shortage of skilled labor. Some business leaders have suggested that the country should explore importing skilled labor to fill vacancies. But Mr. Gale argued that low wages in the private sector is forcing skilled workers to seek jobs elsewhere.
In the last couple of weeks, private sector leaders have been indicating that there's a labor shortage. I am not so sure that anybody has done a proper assessment in terms of the skill needed. But it may very well mean that employees within the private sector are leaving those jobs to better alternatives, or private sector employers have not been paying competitive rates. And so they are failing to attract and to retain the composite skills. So the private sector is now placed on the back foot in terms of not only looking at compensation, but looking at the terms and conditions of employment and the environment to which they are employing the workers.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Hagley Gap in St. Thomas is the latest community to benefit from the Universal Service Fund's free Wi-Fi, but speaking at the commissioning, a promise that other issues will be addressed.
Come September, students in Hagley Gap and other communities in St. Thomas will have access to designated transportation for school. Minister of Transport Darrell Vaz revealed that the parish has been selected to participate in the Rural School Bus System Pilot Project.
When I come here and I see how far you are up in the hills, it just brings home to me how much more important it is now that I'm actually seeing it and feeling it, that there is need for a rural school bus system.
There has been a transport crisis in the parish for some time. Commuting students have been feeling it the most, from overloaded buses to a lack of taxi services. Mr. Vaz says the calls have not fallen on deaf ears.
We cannot have the children going to school under the conditions that they are going. In the back of trucks, in the back of pickups. No child can learn and meet his true potential if he has to wake up or she has to wake up from 2 o'clock in the morning to walk and then to take a truck or a bus or a bike or a bicycle to the point of where they can get a taxi.
From transport to water, it was also announced that Hagley Gap has been selected to benefit from a water distribution program.
MP Robertson, I'm going to need you to find 10 young men who need a job and want to learn from heart, to learn plumbing, because we're going to pay 10 young men to help you install the tanks at your house as well. We're also going to make sure that we geotag, meaning we map where every tank is, so that you're able to have a map at the parish council, and when you need, in times of the worst drought, you need trucking, we know exactly where the trucks need to go.
The residents are elated.
It is hard to find words to really express, but I believe that it is great, it is wonderful, and I will not use the word beautiful, but it is excellent.
Carrie Ann Simpson for TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Microlender Dollar Financial Services realized an increase in its loan portfolio and profit at the end of June. The company says in its second quarter, it made $105 million after tax, up from $59 million for the corresponding period last year. The quarter's profit brought dollars post-tax earnings at the half-year mark to $227 million. At the same point last year, the company made $119 million. Dollar Financial's total revenue for the 6 months was 98% higher, coming in at $592 million. On the international scene, leaders in the Texas House and Senate reached an $18 billion compromise that includes tax relief for the state's 5.7 million homeowners. The legislation is expected to pass this week and includes an increase in the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000 and a reduction in the school property tax rate for the owners of homes and businesses. But State Representative Vicky Goodwin thinks the deal is premature. She says renters need to be included in property tax relief. The Democrat also wants to see a teacher pay raise that was stripped from the bill put back in the legislation. Despite the sticking points, she's optimistic the House and Senate are ready to move forward. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, on Monday began meetings in Washington to discuss the key components and implications for the region of the future pandemic instrument, as well as the proposed amendments to the international health regulations. PAHO says the meeting aims to share and promote better understanding and facilitate consensus. The meeting will be led by the World Health Organization. It seeks to ensure that the health, social, and economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is not repeated, and that the world is better prepared to prevent or respond to future pandemics through increased collaboration, exchange, and high-level political commitment. On the international scene, Ukraine this morning destroyed Iranian drones following an airstrike attack on the capital by Russia. Ukraine military administration head Serhiy Popko made the announcement via Telegram messaging app. In the post, the official stated the Iranian drones were launched from the southern direction from the Krasnodar territory of the Russia Federation, and that all detected air targets that were moving in the direction of Kyiv were destroyed. And the United States has disclosed a new strategy to combat deaths from xylazine. The drug is a potent veterinary sedative. Doctors say xylazine lowers a person's blood pressure, breathing, and heart rate to unsafe levels. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
Thank you, Carrie-Ann. We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jermaine Brown.